If I taught you love, would you love me? Keep the Mashiach above me. Like the book said, he is my...
In the previous study, we talked about integrity and how integrity means a firm adherence to a code of moral values. And I added to that and mentioned that the firm adherence applies to the one with integrity in that they understand the benefits of having integrity, but they also understand and accept the consequences when they fall short. You know, a person that has integrity or integrity itself, it's not obtained naturally. A person is not necessarily born with it. Integrity is a trait that is observed and learned. And observation of someone's actions and mindset in accordance with a set of moral codes has occurred. And the one who is doing the observing establishes and attributes those actions and that mindset as truth. And this is generally where the pursuit of integrity is going to come face to face with one's desire. You have to have a desire to obtain integrity and to live your life in an upright manner. The most difficult thing for most of us in obtaining it is going to be where you have to place the truth and that code of moral laws above your own thoughts, wants, even needs, and most importantly, those desires. In speaking this, it may appear easy or trivial, but to be honest, it is a lot more difficult than you may think. Integrity deals primarily with honesty and truth. Notice, I did not say both, and that is the point. You may perceive or believe a thing, but in the face of truth, are you able to come off your belief, let go of what you have perceived, and adhere to the truth? Now, did you know that the truth is harder to accept than a fallacy or a lie? I used to do this exercise with myself, and I know it might sound crazy, but I used to take an event or a situation and try to break it down to the root cause. And almost every time I could trace a situation or an event all the way back to the opposing forces of good and evil. So here's a quick question for you. What travels the fastest in the known universe? In science class, they would have told us that was light. But actually, darkness travels much faster than light. Think about that. If I were to ask you what you see first in Genesis 1, is it darkness or light? Most people would probably say that they see darkness first. But if we look at 1 John 1:5, it says, "Then this is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you that Elohim is light, and in him is no darkness at all." So, do we still believe that darkness was present first? The whole of Genesis 1 is a retrospective statement, especially verses 1 and 2. It is telling us of a time period known as the beginning. And in the beginning, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was. I said time period, but time itself is a concept that has to exist inside a form or a construct. Without that form or construct, time doesn't even exist. In verse 2, we are told that the earth, we are told of the earth, but it was without form and void. So even at this moment, this very moment, the earth doesn't even exist. By the way, void is the absence of anything distinguishable, anything of substance. It is emptiness, similar to darkness being defined as the absence of light, nothingness, worthlessness. So here in verses 1 and 2, time doesn't exist here, neither does the earth exist here. Yet we are told that darkness was. The form or the construct that is needed to bring these things into existence is light. And light in Hebrew is or. And the AHLB says the action is order. It tells us that light is necessary for order. Concretely, it means a box, and that's the form. And it also says that this box and light is necessary for order. So in essence, light is necessary to restrict darkness and the spreading of it. Think about that. Did you not know that your bodies are the temple of Elohim? By the way, light is a substance that is composed of photons, electrons, and gluons, and can be measured by wavelengths and electromagnetic radiation, heat, if you would. Darkness, on the other hand, is not a measurable substance. It is only understood and measured by the absence of light, or the absence of a measurable substance. I'll probably ruin someone's understanding of Genesis 1, especially verses 1 and 2. So let's move on. Now, the text in this photo kind of gives it away, but does anyone know what this is? This is a representation of the land that was originally promised to Abram, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. Notice that the earliest civilizations that we discover biblically are outside of this land. Sumer, Akkad, Elam, Babylon, Media, Persia, Parthia, Assyria, Nineveh, Haran. It is my opinion that in the most ancient of antiquity, this area may have been known by another name, Eden. Now, I know most of us have been told that the Garden of Eden is obscured and probably overtaken by the northern part of the Persian Gulf. But to me, that doesn't make sense. Remember, Elohim planted a garden east in Eden, and there he placed the man. Man sins, and Elohim sends him forth from the garden to till the ground from whence he was taken. And he places at the east of the garden cherubim to keep the way of the tree of life. This identifies the area that man was taken from as being east of the garden. And remember, the most earliest civilizations we are told of are to the east of this area. The northern part of the Persian Gulf, to me, cannot be it, because east of it is an area known as Susa. And Susa does not become relevant till later on in the biblical account, around the time of Esther, and it is then known as Shushan. Now, Noah's Ark, it rests in the mountains of Ararat, which is at the northern part of this map. And he comes down and he settles in the Mesopotamia region, probably somewhere close to Ur. And at this point, the only person alive with some semblance of who Elohim is Noah. As the earth begins to be repopulated, the people, they don't have radio, TV, books, or internet to discover who Elohim is. They have to rely on word of mouth, on what they see, feel, and what they can understand through their observance. And by the time we get to Abram, who also grew up in this region, what they see and understand is that Nimrod reigns supreme in this area, the area east of this land. But Abram, he hears the voice of Elohim telling him to leave this area and to come into the outline portion of this map, into that land. So Abram travels up to Haran and into this land. And even though at this time, this land begins to be inundated by different cultures and beliefs, everything that Elohim tells Abram to do and will happen, happens. And Abram prospers, is protected, and he's respected in that land. This understanding is passed on to Yitzhak, and he too is prosperous in this land. Yaakov inherits some understanding, but has to flee from Esau back out of this land into the area of Haran. And although he gains wives and children in Haran, the things that Yaakov has to endure and go through more than likely makes him feel as though he is subject to the powers that be in that land, the area of Haran. It is not until Yaakov has spent close to 20 years in Haran that he too hears from Elohim, and he flees from Laban back into the area of his father. And although Yaakov has some bumps, trials, and tribulations along the way, he begins to understand truly who the Elohim of this land is. We can imagine that some of this information is poured into Yosef from Yaakov, but then Yosef is sold unto Potiphar. But we see something with Yosef that we have not seen before. Even though he is captive and subject to the deities and the powers that be of Mitzrayim, Yosef continues to hold on to an understanding that everything that happens, even in Mitzrayim, is the will of Elohim and for his good. And everything that Yosef accomplishes in Mitzrayim, he attributes to Elohim. Remember, Yaakov, when he found out that Yosef was still alive, he longed to see him, but he was actually fearful of going down to Mitzrayim. Let's look at Genesis 46, 1 through 4. It says, "And Yasharel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto the Elohim of his father Yitzhak. And Elohim spake unto Yasharel in the visions of the night and said, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am the Elohim of thy father. Fear not to go down into Mitzrayim, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Mitzrayim, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Yosef shall put his hand upon thine eyes." With the death of Yosef, all true understanding of who Elohim is was lost. And Yasharel became captive and subjects to the deities and the powers of Mitzrayim. It is all they would know, and it was all they could perceive and understand. There was no cross-examination or fact-checking the information. There were no texts they could investigate. Now, Yahuwah says something to Moshe early on in the Exodus account. Let's look at Exodus 6, 1 through 5. It says, "Then Yahuwah said unto Moshe, Now shall you see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And Elohim spake unto Moshe and said unto him, I am Yahuwah. And I appeared unto Abram, unto Yitzhak, unto Jacob, by the name of Elohim Almighty, but by my name Yahuwah was I not known to them. And I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Yasharel, whom the Mitzri keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Prayerfully, most of us understand that the covenant promise is about the restoration of a people and their land. But what I want to show you is that Elohim Almighty is a bad translation. The Hebrew word here for Almighty is Shaddai, which has been translated for us as Almighty. Now, Shaddai is actually a derivative of the Akkadian word Shadu, which means mountain. Why is this important? Well, it actually drives home everything that I've just laid out for you. Comparative to the regions of Babylon, Mesopotamia, and Mitzrayim, the mountainous region is located in Canaan. The forefathers' understanding was that he was the Elohim of the area or the land of the mountains. The AHLB says that concretely, Shaddai means breast. And this is slightly true in a sense. The way that mountains protrude from the landscape is comparative in the ancient mindset of a woman's breast. A woman's breast is also a place of nourishment and security. So to the ancients, when traveling to the land promised and the mountains are seen, this is the thought: nourishment and security. And it gives a whole new meaning to a land flowing with milk and honey. For man, there are 4 basic necessities needed in life: food, water, clothing, and shelter. You could also equate shelter to security or covering. Even though Elohim has shown Yasharel his powers and performed wonders in delivering them from Mitzrayim, their minds have been conditioned in captivity to believe that these are the things that they have left behind, and that the powers that be and the deities were responsible for it. Even in all of its harsh cruelty, Mitzrayim was their home, and it was the only one they've ever known. Now, they complained, and Yah provided food and water. Yah provided garments that never wore out, and they shed them to worship naked before an Egyptian deity that they created. Let us pick up in Exodus 33 with Moshe attempting to make atonement for the people. We're going to read verses 1 through 3. It says, And Yahuwah said unto Moshe, Depart and go up hence, thou and the people which thou hast brought up out of the land of Mitzrayim, unto the land which I swear unto Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob, saying, Unto thy seed will I give it. And I will send an angel or messenger before thee, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in the midst of thee, for thou art a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way. Yahuwah begins with Moshe by reiterating the fact that the actions of the people indicate to him that they have no reverence for him. Their belief is that Moshe is the one who has brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim. So, Moshe, you bring them unto the land I swore unto your fathers. Yahuwah says he will send an angel or a messenger before them, and that he will drive out the inhabitants of the land. And I don't want you to miss this because this is important for understanding. All the people that Yahuwah mentions here, the Canaani, the Amori, the Hitti, the Perizi, the Hivi, and the Yebusi, are all inhabitants of and within the borders of the land of Canaan, the land of the mountains, a land flowing with milk and honey. Yahuwah tells Moshe that he will not go in the midst of them due to them being stiff-necked, lest he consume them in the way. What is important here is the peoples who are not mentioned. You see, Yasharel, being led by the man who brought them up out of Mitzrayim, they still have to make it there. And in order to do that, they will have to travel through the lands and the peoples of the Midianites, the Edomites, the Moabites, and the Ammonites, just to name a few. In essence, at this moment in the mind of the people, what Yahuwah is relaying to Moshe to relay to them is that Yahuwah is returning to the land he promised. They just have to make it there to him. It kind of reminds me of Yahusha and Philip. In Yehukanan 14, 2-7, it says, "In my father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go, ye know, and the way ye know." Thomas saith unto him, "Master, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way?" Yahusha saith unto him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him and have seen him." Let's hop back to Exodus 33, and we are going to read verses 4-6. "And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned, and no man did put on his ornaments. For Yahuwah had said unto Moshe, Say unto the children of Yasharel, Ye are a stiff-necked people. I will come up into the midst of thee in a moment, and consume thee. Therefore, now put off thy ornaments from thee, that I may know what to do unto thee. And the children of Yasharel stripped themselves of their ornaments by the mount Horeb." Now, do not let the mentioning of Horeb throw you off into thinking that Yasharel has moved locations. The people are still located at the base of what we call Mount Sinai. More specifically, if you have understanding, you will know and identify the location they are currently at as what is known today as Jebel al-Lawz, which is on the Arabian Peninsula. In Arabic, Jebel al-Lawz means the mountain of law. Horeb, it is a generic name that is given to the Sinaitic mountain region. In addition, don't let the name Sinai confuse you into thinking that this mountain is located on the Sinai Peninsula, as the world and the powers that be gave the peninsula closest to Egypt this name to possibly conceal the location of the mountain of Elohim. The word Sinai, sort of like Shaddai, is derived from the name of the Akkadian moon deity, Sin. If you look at Strong's H5514, Sinai is the name given to the mountain of Elohim, and you can see that it's actually located in Arabia. That's just a little geographical information for you. So the people, they mourn after hearing a grievous word from Yahuwah. And verse 4 confirms what I laid out and explained about verses 1 and 3, or 1 through 3, and that the people know exactly what it is that Yahuwah is saying. He will not go with them. They are on their own. But it is actually a lot deeper than what you initially see in the KJV. It says that no man did put on his ornaments, for Yahuwah had said unto Moshe that he may know what to do unto them. For the casual reader of the Bible, the mentioning of the ornaments is going to immediately cause them to believe that what is being spoken of are the gold and silver jewelry and the things that Yasharel confiscated from the Egyptians. Ornaments in Hebrew is adi, and it means finery, generally an outfit, but specifically, it is a headstall. A headstall is defined as a wrap that encircles the head. For the children of Yasharel, the head wrap is seen as a necessary covering for protection, but it also denoted position and authority, especially for a nation of priests. The additional understanding that the children of Yasharel have now, at this moment, is not only will they be going alone without Yahuwah in the midst of them, but they will do so without their covering, without his protection. Let's pick up with verses 7. We're going to read 7 and 8. It says, Then Moshe took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass that everyone which sought Yahuwah went out unto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp. And it came to pass when Moshe went out unto the tabernacle, that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door and looked after Moshe until he was gone unto the tabernacle. To drive home the aforementioned point, or the aforementioned points, Moshe takes the tabernacle and he pitches it without or outside of the camp, afar off. It's sad to say, but just like us today, it is not until something drastic happens that we learn to actually reverence Yahuwah the way we are supposed to. The people rising up and standing at their tent doors, peering out at Moshe as he enters the tabernacle, shows the level of concern. Concern because they now understand the consequences of their errors. You would think that all Yahuwah did in Mitzrayim, and them crossing the sea and the manna, the quail, the water, the thunderings, and the lightning on the mount, would be a clear indicator of the power and the authority of Yahuwah. But no, it is not until 3,000 of them die and Yahuwah informs them that they are indeed not going back to Mitzrayim, that they will travel to the promised land without him and his protection, that they now begin to understand and show the proper reverence. The reason that I said that the removal of the tabernacle drives home the aforementioned points is because tabernacle in Hebrew is ohel. it means a tent. But its usage in the KJV is normally a covering, but also a dwelling or a home. The tabernacle being located at first inside the camp was the visible image that Yahuwah was among them, providing a covering and protection. With Moshe's removal of it to outside of the camp, they now have a visible image and realization of the fact that Yahuwah has removed himself and all of those things his covering provided from them. Now, Ohel is spelled with the Aleph, the Hey, and the Lamed. And the AHLB tells us that it means a looking towards something. To me, this is loosely correct. It describes the actions of the people that we see in verse 8, but does not quite capture exactly what Ohel is. To me, the Hebraic breakdown of these characters is probably more along the lines of the place where the strong leader reveals instructions. In verse 7, it says that it came to pass when an individual sought Yahuwah, they went unto the tabernacle. They are going out unto the place of instruction, the place where the understanding, the authority, the covering can be attained. Notice that the people go out unto the tabernacle, but Moshe is the only one who's able to go into the tabernacle for now. He receives the guidance and instruction, and this is in turn relayed to the individual seeking it. Let's pick up with verses 9, or verse 9. We're going to read 9 through 11. And it came to pass, as Moshe entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle. And Yahuwah talked with Moshe. And all the people saw the cloudy pillar stand at the tabernacle door. And all the people rose up and worshiped, every man in his tent door. And Yahuwah spake unto Moshe face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp, but his servant Yahushua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle. What I found interesting about these set of verses is that the people rise up and worship when they see the cloudy pillar. To me, it is almost as if they are coming to a realization that the cloudy pillar is an indication of Yahuwah. Like they are processing what they are seeing through their mental Rolodex and coming to the conclusion that it was actually Yahuwah appearing as a pillar of cloud, leading them out of Mitzrayim. Now, for us reading this and looking back, we totally get it. But again, like I stated in the beginning, they don't have any outside references to bounce understanding of what they are seeing and what is occurring off of. Everything is being experienced for the first time and being processed mentally immediately. It's almost like a mob mentality. You have to understand, we are talking about somewhere around 2 million people that left Mitzrayim. Think about that. The crowd of Israelites move, and you move. If you are in the middle of that crowd or closer to the back, you may not necessarily understand why you are moving. All you know and can see is a pillar of fire leading the way at night and a pillar of cloud leading the way during the day. Do they all truly have an understanding of who and what they are seeing? I believe they should, but we are reading these events in retrospect. Nevertheless, the sight of the pillar of cloud appearing and talking to Moshe at the door of the tabernacle, the people equate it to being Yahuwah. Let me repeat that again. The pillar of cloud appeared and talked to Moshe. You see, the grayed out italicized text in verse 9 is added for clarity, but it does not exist in the original text, which means that Yahuwah's name is not in this verse in the original text, making it appear as if the cloudy pillar is speaking to Moshe. Then verse 11 says that Yahuwah spake unto Moshe face to face. Now, Yahusha tells us in Yehukanan 6 that not that any man hath seen the Father, save he which is of Elohim. He hath seen the Father. Furthermore, we will see later on in this chapter, Yahuwah tell Moshe that he cannot see his face and live. So what does it mean here when it says that Yahuwah spake to Moshe face to face? For me, I know that the Hebrew word for face is paneh. But here in verse 11, the word used for both of these instances of face is panim, which is face in the plural form, which would not make sense to say faces to faces. Now, the root word for paneh or panim is panah. And panah means to turn, to face, i.e., to appear or look. It is my opinion that the thought being relayed behind the text here is that Yahuwah appeared to Moshe and spake unto him as a man speaketh unto his friend. This clarifies the future statement Yahuwah utters about no man being able to see him. It clarifies Yahusha's statement of no one ever seeing the Father, and also gives understanding to the people seeing the cloudy pillar and attributing it to being the appearance of Yahuwah. Now, after the conversation with Yahuwah, we see Moshe turn again and return into the camp. And we are given information concerning his servant, Yahusha, the son of Nun, departing not out of the tabernacle. Now, the status and station of Yahusha, Moshe's servant, is not directly relevant to the story being told here. So it can only be that we are being informed of this as pertinent information for the reader. Let me start by first saying that young man here does not convey the correct understanding. The word that is used here is na'ar. And na'ar means a boy from the age of infancy to adolescence. It can also mean a servant or a girl. And this reminds me of the story in Luke where Yahusha, as a na'ar, remained in the temple in Jerusalem following the feast. And his parents were looking for him. Once they found him, he informed them that he remained there because he must be about his father's business. Another thing that catches my attention is the text telling us that Yahusha is the servant of Moshe. And this reminds me of Messiah saying that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. So what can we learn or gain from the information that we're being told here about Yahusha, the son of Nun, not departing out of the tabernacle? Well, The role that we are to assume is that of a nation of priests for Yahuwah. A priest's role is to be in service to Yahuwah, and this is accomplished by the priest actually becoming a servant to others. If we look at the life of Yahushua HaMashiach, or we look at the life that Yahushua HaMashiach led, especially the two examples that I gave, and we couple that with the text that we are seeing here concerning Yahushua, the son of the seed, or son of noon, we can see that the best way to ensure that we are equipped and able to do the service of Yahuwah is to ensure that we remain in the tabernacle of Yahuwah. Remember, the tabernacle is Ohel, the place where the strong leader reveals the instruction.
View. If I taught you law, would you love me? Keep the Mashiach above me. Like the book said, he is my